G'day guys, Jack Small on the Wolf Mental here. Hope you're doing well. I'm just going for a little bit of a walk. I've been a little bit slack on doing the kind of vlog style content for the YouTube channel, but we've been really busy. We had a lot of stuff going on, and also we've been on a month of leave. So I actually wanted to do this video for a couple of reasons. I wanted to give you guys an update of what's been happening on our trip away. I also wanted to give you guys a little bit of an insight of what my view is of what happened in the business after being off-grid for a month. And then I'm going to actually review, see what's actually happened in the business when I get back. And then I'll do a follow-up video to talk about exactly what worked really well, what didn't work so well, and what I've learnt from that entire situation. So, a little bit of an update. Over the course of the last 30 days, we took a month out of the business and I took a month off work. And I made a commitment that I was not going to work in the business at all. I wasn't going to answer emails. I wasn't going to answer calls. I wasn't going to fix any problems. I was going to be completely switched off from the business so I could actually see what happened. Was there anything that I was overlooking? Was there anything that I had overestimated? Was there any people who were maybe not pulling their weight? Was there any gaps that presented a risk for us and our business? And it was the first time that I'd taken this much time out of the business since we founded Aureus almost 4 years ago. It'll be 4 years in November. Now, it was also a good time for me because I really struggled with switching off. I wanted to take a month where I didn't do anything. In the past, when I'd taken extended holidays off, I'd written books, I had mapped out new business projects. I'd done lots of different things to keep myself occupied because I'm ADHD. I really struggle with switching off. And for all of those reasons, I always keep myself busy doing something. I really love what I do. I wanted to switch off completely. And further to that, we wanted to go to one of the most remotest parts of Australia, which is Cape York. And we wanted to tackle the Old Telegraph Track, one of the most notorious pieces of four-wheel drive track in Australia. If you're a four-wheel driver, you would know that the Old Telegraph Track is pretty much on every four-wheel driver's bucket list. And us as amateur four-wheel drivers, with all of the gear and no idea, we wanted to prove that we could do it and not get ourselves into mischief or ride off the truck. So that was our mission. And we're also taking 2 dogs in tow. So the plan was to go to Cape York, do the Old Telegraph Track, spend about 2 weeks up on the Cape, and then basically cover the entire length of the country and get across to Broome over the course of the entire month. So basically it was about 10,000 kilometers over the course of 30 days. It's going to be a lot of travel. We're going to go Cape York 2 weeks, make our way across to Normanton, get across into Northern Territory, go down to Alice Springs, work our way back up, go through the Kimberleys, and then get across to Broome. Now, as I've spoken about before, we all start things with the best intentions, and anybody who's lived on the road, and particularly has been traveling through this whole kind of COVID crisis, realizes that you can't really make solid plans. Everything is open to interpretation and must be flexible to be able to change and shift with the times. And this is absolutely no exception. Let's talk about the trip first. First things first, we didn't want to tackle the Old Telegraph Track alone. We wanted somebody who could maybe guide us, give us some I guess, a crash course, ensure that we didn't do anything silly. So we booked a tag-along tour. Tag-along tour was going to cost us about $5,000. It was going to be 2 weeks. It was going to take us through all of the best parts of the Cape. It really gave us an insider's insight so we didn't miss anything. Had it booked, and then a couple of weeks out, it was cancelled. Looking back in hindsight, it was a blessing because we didn't really need it, to be honest. We said, okay, tag-along tour's been cancelled. We're going to save ourselves $5,000 and let's just give it a crack. So we started making our way up. We said, okay, first stop is Cooktown. And on our way through Cooktown, we get to Cooktown. I facilitated a couple of speaking gigs over the time I was away that were already booked in. And we were in Cooktown, and we were just about getting ready to hit the corrugations, because anybody who's gone up to the Cape would know that the corrugations up to the Cape are enough to send you insane. Pretty much from Cooktown onwards is endless corrugations. We're talking 14 hours of corrugations. It is just frustrating. It's the worst thing that I've ever had to endure. No other, so many times in my entire life have I ever wanted to just give up and turn around and go back. We didn't, but that's how I felt. We got to Cooktown and I noticed something was starting to go wrong with our tyres. I noticed that the tread wasn't great. There'd been a couple of instances prior where we got bogged in situations where we really shouldn't have got bogged. And I'm like, should we repair the tyres? Like, should we change out the tyres? No, we don't really have the time. I think we've got one last trip in them. Famous last words. And we decided to go up to the Cape and go, okay, we'll go one more trip. The tyres should be fine. And once we come back, we'll get them all switched out. We leave Cooktown. We start heading up the corrugations. And before the first major roadhouse, which is Mulgrave Road House, we had a catastrophic tyre failure as we exited off these corrugations. We go on these corrugations and I feel like this, it's just the intensity of the corrugations just magnified like 10 times. And I'm like, fuck, this is crazy. And then as soon as we get off the corrugations onto the bitumen again, the corrugations didn't stop. And I go, that's fucking weird. So then I slowly pull over and then we get out of the car and the passenger rear tyre was completely shredded, smoking, because obviously all of the friction that was being created as it was delaminating. And it's pitch black and we had to change the tyre on the side of the road. And because the tyre had completely collapsed, the sidewall had collapsed, the truck had fallen and had fallen down to a level where we actually couldn't get the jack underneath it, the big jack. Bit of backstory. Luckily that day, I had this sense. I go, the stock jack, like we're carrying a lot of weight. The truck's nearly 4 ton. It's pushing the GVM upgrade limit. I don't think the bottle jack that came with the car is going to be good enough. So I went and bought another bottle jack, a 5 ton bottle jack. So we had 2 bottle jacks. We had the stock one, which is quite short, and then we had the new one, which was quite tall. Luckily, I had both because I had to use the little one to get the car a little bit higher that would allow me to fit the big one underneath to be able to actually jack up the car because the little one didn't have enough power to be able to jack up the car. Anyway, an hour or so later, switched the tyre, limped our way to Musgrave, checked the tyres, and basically all of the tyres had started cracking. So we came back to Cooktown because surprise, the stock rim and tyre combination that's on the Troopy, no one has ever seen before. Nobody stocks them, so they needed to order them from Townsville and needed to bring them up to Cooktown and then refit them. So we lost about 5 days. You live and learn. In hindsight, I should have never embarked on the journey without making sure that the tyres were all good. But hey, it is what it is. $1,500 exercise later and brand new set of tyres and off we go again. So we work our way up to the Cape. We get all of the way to the Broome station, which is the last station before we embark on the Old Telegraph Track. We mapped out our journey. We said we were going to do the Old Telegraph Track over 3 days, and we set out. When we set out, we just about to filled up for fuel, and we met a fellow by the name of Daniel, who was by himself. Kind of looked at each other and I'm like, oh, you doing the old telly? And he's like, yep. And yep. How you feeling? He's like, oh, a bit nervous. And I'm like, hey, do you want to stick together? He's like, that sounds like a great idea. So we set off together and started trying to tackle this track. As we start to get up to the first river crossing, really confusing. I'm going to do a video talking through from a beginner's, amateur standpoint, the best way to approach the Old Telegraph Track based on our experience. But you get to this first river crossing, and the first one has this sheer drop. It looks like gunshot, and it goes into this really deep river crossing. And we're like, fuck, is this the first crossing? We try to find chicken tracks around. To the left-hand side, there's a chicken track, but it goes to a dead end, and you got to loop your way back. You go to the right, go to that chicken track, that goes to a dead end. You got to loop your way back. So then we kind of found the right path. The right path was one that was basically to the right-hand side to the first chicken track, and essentially gave you, it was a little bit of an incline down into a very shallow, almost empty riverbed. Fine, perfect. Then we drive our way down this riverbed, get to this first incline, which requires a bit of berries. Stuck it, went up, smashed it. So essentially, we're getting some really good pace. We met another fellow and his wife, Terry and Siggy. They were much more experienced four-wheel drivers, so that really helped us, just give us the confidence. They drove first, picked the lines, made it really easy. So basically, we covered basically half of the Old Telegraph Track all the way up to Elliot, all the way up to Fruitbat Falls on day one. And it was actually quite straightforward. There was a couple of sketchy parts. The great thing about the Old Telegraph Track is that basically you can choose the line that you want to take. And for the first half of the Old Telegraph Track, you have choice around the difficulty of the line you want to take. You can go the parts that are easier, that typically go around the main track, or you can go the most difficult ones, which are typically deep ruts, mud pits, like crazy mud pits, and you can choose the level of difficulty. Most paths have probably 3 or 4 different approaches that you can make. We typically always chose the easiest one, and for pretty much the entire first half of the Old Telegraph Track, there were no real dire situations. There was a couple of instances where we really needed to learn the hard way. Could have been a really dire situation, and I'm going to give you my insights and things that I've learned. And these are lessons that can be applied to four-wheel driving and overlanding, but also be applied to business as well. So, we went through a river crossing, I believe it was called Kakadu Creek. And it's quite a rapid river, and it's a hard bottom, rock bottom, and there are quite a number of holes in the rapids. So we had to kind of walk through it and then choose the right line to be able to go through. It was quite good. As long as you picked the right line, as long as you kept yourself there, you didn't go too far to the left, didn't go too far to the right, where you would have been kind of falling into a really deep part and essentially written off your vehicle, was perfectly fine. There was I believe it's a second river crossing. I can't remember the name of what the river crossing was, but a relatively shallow river crossing, didn't even come up to the rock sliders on our truck. And there was an exit. The exit, I didn't walk it. I walked the river, I walked every river crossing. I didn't walk up the exit of this particular water crossing. Because I just figured that you'd go straight up, and then once you got over the top, it'd be fine. This was nearly my undoing. Listen, planning is everything. You only get one chance to do. And for that reason, I nearly ended up rolling my truck. When we come out on the exit, and I gave it the berries coming over the exit, because it's what I'd done in a previous exit of the first river crossing that we did. Try to apply the same strategy second time round, should have served me right. I went over, and then what I didn't realize is that to the left, there was the other exit to this particular river crossing, and there was a big hole that my wheel went in. my whole entire truck went up on its two wheels, and it was only through steering through that situation in the moment and then powering out of it that I was able to bring the truck back. I've got a video of both my GoPro of Terry standing there with his eye. I've never seen a look of just complete complete terror and fear like that before. And Anna's actually got a video from behind of me in slow-mo, of the truck almost flipping. That was a very, very close call. Put some hairs on my chest, that one. The river crossings and everything were fine. We never lost traction once. The biggest risk of the entire Old Telegraph Track, at least for us, because we've got the rooftop tent and I guess a quite top-heavy vehicle, was the big wheel holes and the articulation required going through the main parts of the track. There were quite a few instances where Anna's holding onto the door, where essentially because of the wheel track that we were taking, the truck was turning quite a lot. It was just really unnerving. I didn't push it too hard, and there's a reason for it, because we saw a circumstance just outside of Nolan's where somebody rolled their truck for being not so conservative. So there was a few instances where they were just very unnerving, and I didn't push it too far, but I could see that we probably weren't that far away from rolling the truck if we had gone any harder. So that was probably the biggest thing for us. Being a long wheelbase, quite a tall vehicle, top heavy, that was the biggest risk for us. The whole situation, the whole Old Telegraph Track, the parts that obviously made us nervous were the water crossings. There were no real water crossings where I felt too uncomfortable to give them a crack. We went mid-July, and mid-July, the depths of the water were not so high. We had a snorkel. We've got a pretty substantial lift on the vehicle. We've got quite tall tyre profiles, so we smashed them. Smashed all of them. We decided, and from the beginning, we said we weren't going to do Nolan's. Our original plan was to do everything up to Nolan's. However, it wasn't really possible, and I'll explain to you why. So, as an amateur four-wheel driver, somebody that has very little experience, here is my advice. Firstly, make sure that your vehicle has a lift, has good tyres, has a snorkel, has a winch, and has recovery points. If you have all of those things, Old Telegraph Track should not be an issue. Second thing, don't be concerned about going on the Old Telegraph Track alone, as long as you're going at a popular time of year. If you're going at a popular time of year, there's always going to be people there, and like us, you're going to find friends, find convoys to be able to tag along with, and you're not going to have any issue. Third thing, don't do water crossings unless there are people there to help you if you do get in trouble. The big thing about Old Telegraph Track, and from everybody that I've spoken to, is it changes every single year with the landscape. So for everyone, the explanation that I give you around my experience, if you go next year, or even you go later in this year, your experience is probably going to be different because it changes with the landscape. So it's so important that you have help if you do get yourself into trouble. And the next thing is, don't be stupid. Don't do anything dangerous. Plan out your recoveries and plan out your situations, because you never know what's going to happen. And if you're not planned, if you haven't prepared for the situation before it unfolds, it's going to be too late. We saw some really dangerous recoveries being done at Nolan's on day 2, and they could have been life-ending. They could have been catastrophic, and I'll explain to you that later. So I'd say my advice stands for day 1, basically up to and past Elliott Falls, and the first 2 water crossings of day 2 from Elliott Falls onwards, which I'll explain shortly. So as long as you got those things, you should be fine. You shouldn't be fearful of the Old Telegraph Track. It was an amazing experience. The landscape is gorgeous. We really enjoyed our time on the Old Telegraph Track. Lifelong memories. I'd love to do it again. So day 2, we camped just after Fruitbat Falls. We went to go see Elliot Falls first thing in the morning, and then we went to the first river crossing after Elliot Falls, which was a little bit sketchy. So basically, you come down a ravine, a quite tight track. We had to do about a 3 or 4 point turn because of the long wheelbase of the Troopy to be able to get down this track, and then you approach a river crossing. Similar to, I believe it's Cockatoo Creek, the base of this particular river crossing is rock, sandstone style rock, and it has wheel holes that you need to plan. Now, there was a straight through track that had quite rapid rivers running, and the issue there is that there's a lot of holes, so you're going to bottom out and you're going to potentially smash your transfer case or your diffs, whatever that might be. The other one is a bit longer but much easier. As long as you pick your line, there was a couple of holes that you needed just to get good wheel placement. You needed to be smart in terms of how you approached it. There was one wheel hole that I went through that was fine, and then on the exit, it was the only time that we scraped the underside of our vehicle getting out, but it was fine. There was nothing, no major issue. Then there's a winding track that goes up. It was a bit dodgy, to be honest. So we saw a couple of vehicles approach this tentatively, people with caravans and people with camper trailers. And the biggest issue for us, and as I mentioned before, the thing that unnerved us the most was big divots in the ground that our wheels would fall into and then tip the truck. And in this particular area, there was not only a big divot that our wheel would fall into, but also a sheer drop into a mud pit. So we were really cautious of that, but we took it easy. We got through there fine. The next river crossing was very challenging. So there was a substantial creep that you needed to make, hitting the brakes and going really slow the whole way down. And then there was a river crossing that was really narrow. So if you're in a Land Cruiser with side steps and side protection and everything, you wouldn't have been able to get through. You would have absolutely destroyed the sides of your vehicle. So we had to go the chicken track around the outside, but once again, there was a rock step upwards that you had to approach at an angle, so it was a big wheel raise getting through there. And then there was an exit which had holes as well, so another chance to roll the truck. So this is a common theme through the whole thing. It's just about being smart with getting the right help and getting people to tell you how to place your wheels, putting your power into the right places, knowing which way to turn your wheel, because if you get a wheel raise and you turn your wheel that way, sometimes that wheel actually not turning into the direction that you're turning can actually be the thing that gets you to roll your truck. So if you are going to do that, you need to power through. Or sometimes if you're turning too much, you actually need to turn into the fall, so you've actually got that wheel to support you. That was really interesting, just getting a feel for those kinds of situations and just kind of getting an understanding of how you maneuvered your wheel and what impact that had on the movement of your truck. That was a really great learning experience. Up to that point, we thought we were going to go all the way through to Cannibal Creek and Misery Creek and then get up to Nolan's, and then there was going to be a chicken track around. But we were told that that wasn't actually possible. If we wanted to do Cannibal Creek and Misery Creek, we needed to go through them and then come back through them to go all the way back to go the detour to get to the other side of Nolan's. So with a group of guys that we met, we decided that we were going to skip it. We went the chicken track around Nolan's, went to the other side of Nolan's, and essentially wanted to watch people send it into Nolan's Creek, Nolan's Brook. As we're going through the chicken track, there was a guy with a camper trailer whose U-bolt had sheared off his truck. The entire axle had fallen, and essentially he had to do a roadside repair. So we were sitting there for about an hour trying to help him cut wood, lash it to his leaf springs, and essentially try and limp his way out. Now, this camper trailer had been absolutely punished. It was really heavy. Bundutech rooftop tent, fridges, fridge size. It was huge. I think he'd overpacked the vehicle, and with the amount of punishment it had got, it couldn't handle it. So he had to, with all the Creb track and French's track and Frenchman's track, and getting through 3/4 of the Old Tele, it just couldn't handle it anymore. So that was the end of that chapter for him. And catastrophic failure. Would have had to try and patch it up, get it off the track so everyone could get past, and then have to get it towed into up to the Cape to get it fixed. Things like this happened. Just because I tell you the track can be done by an amateur doesn't mean that these types of accidents and failures can't occur. Like, we had a catastrophic wheel failure. What happened if that didn't happen to us just as we got onto the corrugations? What if that happened in the middle of the Old Telegraph Track? Suspension failures are the biggest ones. You see pieces of suspension absolutely everywhere, bogging your car and basically shredding diffs and CV joints or whatever. All of these things can happen. So just being prepared and understanding your vehicle and also having the right roadside assistance is imperative. So we're insured through Club 4x4. Before we went on the trip, we upgraded our off-road recovery up to $15,000. And I think it was an extra $300 for the year or something like that. Tremendous value, just an absolute no-brainer. Because the reality is, for you to get an off-road recovery vehicle in there to get you out of there and to Weeper or to wherever, it's going to be a 10 grand exercise. And the other part here is that the theft that occurs on these tracks is just, people are unscrupulous. If you leave your truck there for a day, you're lucky to come back and have anything. You need to take what you need to, because people are just going to come in the night and cannibalize it. I've heard some stories from friends of mine on some other tracks where these things have occurred. So getting that appropriate protection is super, super important. All right, so we continue on day 2. We go to the bypass, we get back into the corrugations, which the closer you get to the tip, the worse the corrugations get. It's just backbreaking, absolutely horrible. We got to the other side of Nolan's Brook because we wanted to watch people send it, and send it they did. So getting into Nolan's Brook is fine. If you want to go and observe, it's no issue. You follow the track down. Just be mindful that it is only one car width with some kind of areas where you can pull over to let people pass. It is two-way, so people do go both ways. And once you get down to Nolan's and you carry through to the left, there's a big parking area where you can park there. People camp there, and you can kind of watch people give it a crack. Now, we were probably at Nolan's for about an hour, 90 minutes. And in that 90 minutes, we saw more four-wheel drive recovery faux pas than I have ever seen in my entire life. People are just absolutely reckless. Let me give you some examples. So, first example. There was the standard practice for Nolan's is that there's a recovery vehicle on the one side, the other vehicle who is attempting it is on the other side. They connect recovery straps, snatch straps together to be able to pass the entire length of Nolan's, because depending on which angle you're going to take, you can sometimes take a better approach angle into Nolan's, but then that's a longer water crossing. The ones that are shorter are very, very deep. So normally most people take the longer route of the water recovery and they've got somebody to pull them through. They attach the recovery, they let the person attempt it, And as soon as they start to lose traction, they pull them through. Now, there's a car looking to cross. A guy who went to attach the recovery straps, attached the strap, the cars go, the snatch strap tensions, hits the guy in his waist, throws him about 2 meters because of the kinetic power that's going through this. It's like a big elastic band. Luckily, the guy didn't get hurt. The force of that snatch strap coming to tension flung him 2 meters. I've got video footage of it. Next one. Connected. There was something fouling on the snatch strap on the vehicle that was attempting the crossing, and no dampening blankets. So many people in the kill zone. Snatch strap comes to tension, gives way, luckily snaps straight back to the recovery vehicle, and no one was hurt. But like a massive bang, could have taken someone's head off. Next one. There was a car that had done Nolan's, was overly confident, and had gone back to the exit. Now, on the exit, there is an embankment with a sheer drop of probably about 2 or 3 meters into a mud pit, really deep mud pit. We saw it on the way coming into Nolan's and we're like, yep, nope. So as long as you hug the side and you're not too close to the embankment, the likelihood that that embankment's going to collapse is very, very slim. Famous last words. Vehicle with the Tommy camper on the top, really top-heavy vehicle, had come too close to the embankment. The embankment had collapsed. They've rolled the vehicle on its side into the mud pit, and they couldn't get out. The truck was completely on its side. They were stuck. There was 4 vehicles trying to get them out. There was 4 winches trying to winch them out. No dampening blankets, people standing all around in the kill zone. And then as they started winching out this van, or this truck, the driver of the truck's like, somebody close my door of my camper because it's going to get torn off in the recovery. So somebody jumps down into the hole underneath this truck that's getting winched out, holding the door shut. If those winches gave way, he would have been crushed to death. Ridiculous. Just dangerous situation after dangerous situation after dangerous situation. Stupidity. Just sheer luck stopped these people from losing their lives. And they didn't even realise it. And look at that beautiful view behind me over there. Gorgeous. So that was pretty much our recount of the Old Telegraph Track. Now, I would really love to go back and do the Old Tele Track with a less capable vehicle. I was having a chat to a friend of mine, Andy, and we said we're going to try and buy the cheapest four-wheel drives that we can find, make sure that they're safe, and then go and do the Old Tele Track and back and see if we can make it. Love to do that because the Troop is an absolute weapon. As soon as we engage the rear lockers doing any water crossing or any kind of steep incline, and the truck never lost traction once. With fresh tyres, with good tyre pressures, and with the rear lockers in, not a problem. We saw a number of vehicles with suspension issues, were doing water crossings without snorkels, just stupid. Things that are unavoidable, suspension stuff, you're not going to know when that stuff's going to go, but doing water crossings without a snorkel is just asking for your engine to be completely fucked. So that was our adventures. I'd probably say that the Old Telegraph Track, depending on your vehicle, is intermediate to difficult. Intermediate if you've got a really good vehicle, which was our experience, and difficult if you've got an inappropriate vehicle, and also really difficult if you're doing the really gnarly stuff on the Old Telegraph Track, like Gunshot and Nolan's. Also, they said that Cannibal Creek and Misery Creek were really deep this year. We skipped those with the bypass. So essentially, you do those if you're going to do Nolan. So we put that all in the same bucket. The overarching theme here, guys, is that if you are smart, you don't take excessive risks, you plan your lines, you be conservative, you're going to be fine. You're going to be completely fine. So don't be stupid. That's probably the big theme. Now, went up to the Cape. Went to go see the tip, amazing, beautiful. And then we went to Loyalty Beach. And this is where we found little Yorkie. Yorkie was a stray dog that was roaming around and basically threw out all of our plans, even to this day. She's a cute little dog. We think she's a Whippet, Kelpie, cross. She's a Cape York special. We've called her Yorkie. And she was in our camp and she was gorgeous and she was coming around and really playful. And we could see that she was covered in skin lesions, open wounds, suspected she had mange, super skinny. You could see all of her hip bones and everything. But in spite of all of that, she was still just a beautiful, friendly, warm-natured dog. And we realized that we needed to help her. There's no vets up there. There's you don't even have the ability to get vet supplies. And there's just up there, it's just like another world. It really is. The infrastructure is terrible. It does remind me a bit of a third world country. It really does. The lack of infrastructure and just the way that the landscape is and how everything is up there. It's so extreme. It reminded me of being somewhere like Vietnam or the remote parts of the Philippines or the remote parts of Thailand, like a Southeast Asian developing country. So we knew that she wasn't going to be able to get help. And there's so many of these community dogs. There's these packs of these dogs that just roam around and none of them are desexed and they just have puppies and it's just a systemic issue up there. So we knew that we needed to help her. So we put her in the truck. We decided to drive back, cut our trip short. We wanted to bring her back to get some veterinary treatment and make sure that she was okay. We brought her back to Cairns. Took us 14 hours. She'd never been in a car before. She was super well behaved. But even on the way, she just was fading. No energy, just wanted to sleep, didn't want to eat, wasn't going to the toilet, just a sick dog. So I got her back to vet treatment. They've run blood tests. They said that she had really low white blood cells. She had anemia. She was dehydrated. And they suspect, and she had a 41-degree fever. 41 degrees Celsius fever. And they knew that she had some sort of infection. However, they didn't know where. So they put her on antibiotics. Then we took her home. She still wasn't eating. We took her to another vet the next day. They put her on another lot of antibiotics and steroids to try and stimulate and kind of fire her immune system response, because when they did bloods, her immune system wasn't firing. They couldn't find an infection in her blood, but they knew that something was there because of her temperature. So we had her on 2 lots of antibiotics and steroids, and we were just hanging around Cairns trying to nurse her back to health. And after a few days, she started to come good. It was very touch and go there for a while there. She started to come good. She had her energy back. She was running around with the dogs. She was starting to come back. She was eating well. She was going to the toilet well. And we thought she was doing well. So we were staying here just till she finished her antibiotics. We're then going to get her desexed and get all of her vaccinations. And plan was to then start heading into the Northern Territory. Now, yesterday, we woke up in the morning and she sleeps downstairs, and we opened up the hatch and we kind of woke her up and she couldn't open her eyes. And we're like, oh, she's so sleepy. She doesn't want to open her eyes. And we're like, oh no, something's not right here. So we thought she had conjunctivitis, but she didn't have that kind of typical crust around her eyes. So we're like, oh, maybe it's some sort of eye infection or something like that. So we kind of made some saline solution and tried to clean her eyes. I'm like, okay, let's just see how she goes. Because she was eating fine, going to the toilet fine, no problems. And then throughout the day, we noticed that she couldn't see. She was running into things and she had this cloudiness over her eyes. So we're like, okay, this is bad. We need to take her to the vet. So we took her to the vet and they recommended we take her to emergency. We took her to the 24-hour emergency vet where we had to leave her last night. They said that she was extremely dehydrated, even though she's been drinking really well. She'd lost 3 kilos. She had got worse in her white blood cell count, and her body was not producing any new red blood cells, which was a typical immune response when there's some sort of infection. and the blindness, they're not sure what it is. So she's there at the moment. She's eating well, hopefully responding well to treatment. This poor little dog. It's just the souvenir that we weren't expecting from Cape York, but we realised that if we didn't bring her back, she would have died, 100%. So we're just waiting to see what happens and whether they can help her and get her the treatment that she needs and actually work out what's going on. Is it some sort of blood parasite? Is it some sort of cancer or something else? We're just not sure what it is. So we're kind of on hold right now. So all of our plans were basically thrown out the window, trying to take care of this little dog. Obviously, we had delays with the wheel failure, which pushed us back on our plans, having to come back to Cairns to sort out trying to get Yorkie the care that she needs. And look, it just goes to show, guys, like, life is unpredictable and you've just got to roll with the punches. When I started on this journey of spending this year traveling around Australia, the objective was to get comfortable in being in uncertain environments. It's a thing that I said the whole time. And to be honest, it was the one thing that I was able to predict from this entire trip, that there would be so much uncertainty, so much unknown, and things would be constantly changing, which they have. There's been no week that's been the same. There's been nothing that we've been able to plan for, coupled with COVID lockdowns. Like, we're now not able to go into Western Australia until we're vaccinated, and we've got to submit to get a pass to get access to the Northern Territory, which we're planning to go to next once Yorkie is better. You can't plan for these things. This is just what happens when you want to live this lifestyle. And to be honest, it's been really rewarding, because I think prior to this trip, if pushed into these situations, I would have got really stressed and I would have been anxious. But I think through the repetition of being in these uncomfortable situations, you learn to be comfortable in them. So we're just accepting them for what they are, and we're rolling with the punches, because there's nothing we can do to change them. We did all we could to prepare for the Old Telegraph Track. We did the best we could in that situation. We've done all we can with getting Yorkie the best possible care that we possibly can, and obviously having the financial means to afford it. Like, yesterday cost us $1,000. Every day that she's in intensive care is $1,000. So being able to afford that is a really good position to be in. And coming to my last point, having a business that's allowed me the opportunity to be off-grid and do these things for a month without any involvement is really liberating. Now, when I opened this video, I said I was going to give you my thoughts on what I thought went well in the business and what I thought might have broken, having absolutely no insight into what's happened to the business over that entire month, being completely disconnected. And I'm then going to do another video once I get back and understand what's actually happened, to tell you guys how close I was from what I thought was going to happen to what actually happened. So, what I think went well. I believe that my team has stepped up really well to be able to maintain delivery and client success in my absence. The whole objective of this is to really finalise my exit from delivery and working with our clients one-on-one. And I think my team has done a phenomenal job in delivering outcomes to our clients whilst I've been away. I think client satisfaction is high. I think client results are still really high. I don't think there's actually been any impact as a result of me being away in regards to client success. What do I think didn't go well is initiatives to work on the business. When I left, I gave a series of projects to the team to work on the business, to continue to improve the way that we do things, not just the status quo and the business as usual. And I'm suspecting that they probably weren't done or finished. And I'm going to be pretty disappointed if that is the case. Now, what do I expect? Well, I need to expect that I can get a business to a point where I can come up with the strategic ideas and strategic direction, and that I can trust that my team will fully execute on and implement those projects to the best of their ability, and be able to achieve the outcomes that I set. Why do I believe they weren't done? Well, I believe that that actually comes back to me. And how that comes back to me is that I believe that my constant touch points and following up on those projects has created a reliance on me that my team requires in order to fulfill those tasks. So how do I plan to fix it? Well, I plan to fix it by going back into the business and actually understanding why those projects weren't done. Were there decisions that they were unsure about? Were there options that they couldn't make a decision on which one to go with? Did they get too busy and they forgot? Was there not accountability between the team in my absence to create enough emphasis on following through on those projects? Or did they lack an understanding of the significance of those projects, hence why they didn't do them? I'm not sure the answer to that yet. What else? I think although this trip was designed to get me out of delivery completely, the fact that I look at my diary for next week, I've got a lot of clients who have booked in. I need to work out why they're still booking in with me. And where are the gaps in terms of our client success that those clients still feel that I'm the best person to get them the answers they need to achieve their particular goal. So I'm working on how I fix that at the moment. It's the hardest thing with a coaching business, is that I've got so much knowledge, I've got so much experience, there's so much intellectual property that I have that I haven't unpacked yet. And for that reason, the clients are still coming to me for those specific answers. And I'm working through how do I continue to unpack those and put them into a system that give our clients the confidence that they need to be able to refer to the system as opposed to referring to me. So those are my observations. Now, what else have I done? I have got my executive assistant to put together a survey, and we're going to implement this survey for any member of our team who has more than a week off out of the business. And the objective is to promote people taking more time off. I want people to take time off. I would love all of our team members to be able to have more freedom and flexibility and live life on their own terms, without feeling the guilt that they're letting down the team when they take time off. So I put together a survey, which we're going to send out. I'm going to be the first test case. And essentially every single member in our team, whether they're a direct report or not, needs to complete a survey saying, hey, what were your observations whilst individual was away? What broke while they were away? What worked really well while they were away? What would need to change if that person was going to take double the amount of time off next time? And is there anything else you can suggest that would ensure that the team can continue to hit their targets and keep on track for their goals in that person's absence? Simple, right? No one ever does this. And I'm really interested to see the results. So I'm going to check that on Monday when I get back to the office. So all in all, we've had a really action-packed 30 days. We have really enjoyed having the time off. I'm really excited to get back to the office and work on the business and continue to systemize myself out of the day-to-day operations. And I'm really excited to see how much the team's grown whilst I've been away. So, lessons for you. If you're a business owner, you're an entrepreneur, you're watching this, you want more freedom and flexibility, you need to create and manufacture that freedom and flexibility. And it's not going to happen by you staying in your business. The longer you stay in your business, the more difficult this is. So if you've got a team, you need to test what happens when you're absent. Maybe it's taking a week off. Maybe it's taking 3 days off. Take time off, completely switched off. Things are going to break. You're going to have to just come to terms with the fact that things are going to break, and it's going to be really frustrating for you. Let them break. Come back to the business after you've taken that time off, complete a survey like that, interview the team, understand what went wrong, identify why it went wrong, and work out what can you do to remove those bottlenecks where the business and the team can still deliver the results and achieve those outcomes in your absence. Now, this should not just be for you. There should be a system that is created that allows your team members to do the same thing. Maybe not to the same level, right? But your team will always think that you're on a pedestal if you're only creating these systems to create freedom and flexibility for you. But if you position it as creating freedom and flexibility for them as well, then they're going to be more invested and they're going to buy into what you're trying to create. Next thing, stop being the hero to your own story. I've been a hero to my own story for a really long time. I really enjoy what I do. I love delivering client results, but I've finally got the realization that I can deliver more results to more people by stepping into full-time CEO than I do with working with clients one-on-one or in a group environment. We've got over 700 clients now. It's a lot of clients. We've achieved a great level of success. I'm really grateful for that. But if I want to impact 7,000 clients or 70,000 clients or 700,000 clients, I can't do that as a coach. I need to do that as a CEO. So my objective over the course of the next 3 months is to fully transition myself into CEO, continue to build a team around me that can fulfill and see out my vision, bring it to life, and get our clients even better results than what they got when they were working with me. Because here's the biggest risk, guys. The biggest risk when you are an expert technician and you do this for a really long amount of time is that you become jaded. You start to resent the fact that you're stuck in this same old, boring, mundane reality of what you do every single day. You start to drop the ball on how you deliver value to your clients, and you end up adversely impacting your business. I never want to get to that position. I never want you to get to that position. Maybe you're already in that position. Whatever the reality is of your situation right now, if you want to take that next logical step to create a true lifestyle business, a business that allows you to make more profit, buy back your time, build more personal wealth, you need to take an active role in being able to create and manufacture that. It all comes down to having the right plan. It's about having the right strategies and tactics that you implement and then taking the appropriate level of action, reviewing the results of all of that, and then optimizing and improving over time. So guys, hopefully you've enjoyed this video. A little bit longer than I was expecting. I thought it was only going to be about 30 minutes, but I've nearly gone for an hour now. Hope this has been of value to you. If you've got any questions, hit me up in the comments. If you like this video, please share, follow, and like. It really helps us continue to grow the channel. I'm hoping to make a bit more time to do these kinds of videos and give you my insights, hopefully a bit of wisdom and some advice that helps guide you on your particular journey. And until next time, take care.